Okay. So yesterday we covered about the static analysis part. So how we do static analysis in Android, and then also about dynamic analysis, how we check about the logs and other components in Android. So today we will going to look how we do SSL pinning and also OPS top 10 and some write-ups. So basically today we will going to see what is SSL pinning and how it is implemented in the application, how we can bypass it with Frida as well as objection, and also about the root detection. What is root and how we can bypass the root detection. So let's get started. So what is SSL pinning? So in a normal web application, so there is something called as TLS handshake, right? For a website, the first thing when you click on the website link, what will happen is it will do a TLS handshake. So in that TLS handshake, the particular website which you are trying to reach will provide its certificate, and that certificate will be checked with the browser CA, and if it is a legitimate website, then only the browser will touch that website. So similarly in Android, there are some pre-installed certificate inside the Android device. So there are almost about 150 certificates, CA certificates, and if the website you're communicating from the device is a legitimate, then the device will check whether it is a it's a proper website, and then only it can communicate with it. So what is this SSL pinning? So SSL pinning is basically a technique wherein a site certificate is hashed or its public key is embedded inside the application. So now every time the application is making some request to the website, this key or this hash is checked, and if it does not match, then the connection is closed. So you cannot talk with the website or any other domain which the application is talking to. So this is the concept of SSL pinning. So how we can bypass this actually? So the problem with SSL pinning is there. If you try to intercept the application traffic with the help of Bob suite, then you will get one error like TLS handshake is not possible. It is not having the TLS handshake because the application is embedded within a server certificate itself. So it will not validate the Bob certificate, and the handshake will not happen. So how we can bypass it? So there is one tool called as Frida. So with Frida, with the help of Frida, we can bypass it. So what is Frida? So this definition is from their website itself. So it's a grease monkey for native apps. So to put it in the more technical terms, so it's a dynamic code instrumentation tool. So basically, what it will do, it will just inject its code snippets at the time of runtime in the application. So at the time of runtime, whichever the function which is handling this SSL pinning, it will try to inject its own code, and it will override that code so that the application will not check for that particular function. So that function will all be bypassed with this Frida script. So which simply means that Frida can inject code snippet inside the application logic at the runtime to override the function to bypass certain restriction. As I said. So how to set up the Frida first? So what are the requirements? So basically you need Python 2.7, the old version. You need ADB on the your system, and also either you should have a device or emulator. So Frida installation is quite easy. So you just do pip install Frida tools. So on Linux you can just so let me just open. So now here it is already installed. So this is it is giving me this message that it is already installed, but you can just install with the help of this pip install Frida tools. So now to install ADB, if it is already there on a Linux distribution, it will be already present. But if it is not present, you can just download it with this sudo apt-get install Android tools ADB. So ADB will be also installed. So let's check whether ADB is there. Yes, we have ADB. So now what we have to do? We have to push the Frida server onto our device. So whichever device we are trying to intercept the traffic, or whichever the application which is installed on the device, for that device we have to push the Frida server. So for that we have to first download the Frida server. But before that, we have to check what is our device architecture. So how to check that? So there is this command of ADB. So we can check what is our device architecture with this. So we have this phone Android. It is running Android 6. So let's see whether from ADB it is connected. ADB shell. Yeah, it is connected to that device. So I'll just do exit, and I'll do that command, that ADB shell get prop, that we are saying that get the property of that device. So it is saying that that device is x86. It is running x86 architecture. So now what we have to do, we have to just visit this website where the FIDA servers are there. So let me just click it. So yes, so this is the GitHub page for FIDA, and in the releases you'll find the FIDA server. So we have to find the FIDA server for x86 and download it. So let's go down. So yeah, you can see this is the latest version 14.2.18. So we need for x86, and yeah, I think yes, this one is we are downloading for the device, not for the Linux distribution. So yeah, we have to download this one, Android x86. So I have already downloaded it, but still let's download it. Let's download it in the Linux itself. Okay, releases x86 Android FIDA server. Yes, we are downloading it now. It is getting downloaded. So what we have to do next? So we have to just unzip it. So it is having a XZ format. So let's try to unzip it, and the downloads open folder. Yeah, this is the one. So let me extract here. Yeah, so this is the FIDA server. So what I'll do, I'll just make one folder, say under testing. That's FIDA. I'll make this folder, and I'll put this in this folder so that it will be easy for us to put all the files at once. So what we have to do, we have to just rename it to the FIDA server. Since it is having this more details about the particular file, we have to rename it as a FIDA server only. So we'll rename it as FIDA server. So yes, what we did, we just unzipped it, and then we renamed it as a FIDA server. So now we have to push the FIDA server inside this directory in the Android device. So we have to push it in the data, local, and temp. So before that, we have to give it as an executable permission. So you can see we have given it the executable permission. So you can just give it here. So chmod plus x FIDA server. So now if you check, it is having the executable permission. So now we can push it. So we have to push in data, local, and temp folder. So data, local, temp, push request and argument. Okay, we have not selected the FIDA server, so let me just select it. FIDA server in data, local, temp. So yes, it is now pushing the file. So yeah, one file pushed. So it is that FIDA server is now in data, local, temp. So next, what we have to do now, in order to intercept the Android application traffic, we also need BOP certificate to be installed on the device. So what we have to do first, so we have to first export the BOP certificate from the BOP suite itself, and then we have to push it on the device. So to do that, we'll just turn on BOP first. Okay, we go to proxy, options, and you can see here there is one option called as import export CA certificate. So we have to export the CA certificate, and we have to export a certificate in DER format. So you can see next, and now we have to select where we want to export it, the folder. So I'm now exporting this shared VB folder. So you have to give the particular name to it. You have to write like crtder dot crt. So as you can see, you have to rename it like this: cert hyphen der dot crt. The thing we have to rename it like this because in the Frida script we have mentioned this name for that certificate, so that is why we have renamed this like this. So now I'll try to export it here. Next, the certificate was successfully exported. Okay, so step 3 is done, pushing the Bob certificate on the emulator. So now we have exported it. So let's push it to the same folder that we have to push it in the data local time itself. So let me just get that certificate first. Okay, shared. This is the file crtdr.cert, and Android testing, we have made the folder as Frida. I'll paste it here. And now let's push it. Adb push cert dr in data local temp. One file is pushed. So we have also pushed the certificate and as well as the Frida server. So now let's check what is the next step. So we have pushed it. So now we have to download the Frida script, so which is responsible for SSL pinning bypass. So we can download it from this link. So I've already opened that link. Okay, let me just open it again. Yeah, so this is a universal Android SSL pinning bypass with Frida script. So this is the script. So what you can do, you can just copy the script up till here, and in that folder itself, let's create one file called as fridascript.js, and I'll paste it here. So I have pasted the content. So now let's save it. So now we have 3 files, that is cert.der, which is already pushed, Frida server, which is already pushed. Now we have to push this fridascript.js. So yes, we have to push it in the same location, that is data local temp, so that all these files are on the same location. So what we can do, adb push fridascript.js in the data local temp. Yes, one file is pushed there. So now if we check adb shell cd data local temp, you can see there are these 3 files: cert, Frida server, and this fridascript.js. So these 3 files are there. So now what we will do, okay, so now we will run that Frida server. So how we can run it? So before this, configure the device with buff as discussed in dynamic state analysis. So now we have to first just configure that particular device with the Bob suite. So to do that, I have discussed this in dynamic analysis chapter, but still we can check how to do that again. So let's, yeah, configuring the Bob certificate for Android 6.0 or less. So we do the same thing, we just export the certificate first. But here what we have done is we have just set up the proxy for the device first. So what we do, we go to Bob suite. In the options, we add one more proxy listener. So let's say we have added to 8081 port. Since we are listening on 8080 for localhost, we cannot add the same port because there will be then the conflict will happen. So we are choosing the 8081, and we are saying that listen on the, okay, this is my IP, my system's IP. So listen on this specific port. So now on the device, we will set this same as a proxy for this device, the same IP. So we'll go to settings, Wi-Fi. We'll just modify this network, advancce, manual. We are setting the proxy manually. So we'll set for the same IP, that is 192.168.1.7, and we want to set it for the port 8081. So yes, we have now configured the device for that particular IP. Now what we have to do to download the certificate, we'll just visit pub http burp. Yeah, you can see we got the page to download the certificate. So now if you click CA certificate, it will start downloading. Browser has stopped. Okay, I think let's try on Firefox. The default browser is giving us some error. Let's just try on Firefox http burp. Okay, download. So we are saying let's just download that. So now it is in the download folder, so let's go there, or we can just install it from the setting itself. So just type your certificate, install from SD card. So when you click install from SD card, if you go down, you'll get that option install from SD card. So what we are doing is we are trying to install the certificate on this device itself. So install from SD card, and then we are selecting that certificate. See, we want to install that one and give any name. I'm giving it as a burp, and yes, burp is installed. So that particular certificate is installed on this. So now if you check, so let's say we take let's say whether we can check for an application. You can see we are getting some traffic intercepted by this device. So now since we have installed burp certificate, we can intercept the traffic of the device. But since we are talking about SSL pinning, so we are taking the condition wherein the particular application is using SSL pinning, so that we cannot intercept the traffic. So now if you check the Twitter application, let's see. Just a second. Yes, so if we intercept it, so you can see we are not intercepting any traffic from Twitter because Twitter has implemented SSL pinning. So what now we will try to do, we'll just try to bypass this for particular this Twitter application only. So I'll just close this. Just a second. Hey, आवाज करू नको काहीच. Okay, so what we have done, we have configured the device with burp. These are the steps. So what we did, we first set up the port and the IP address. So now in the device, we have modified the network and set up the manual proxy there. And now we have downloaded the CA certificate. Then we did install from SD card, and we have installed it, and we have gave it a name. So we can set it at any name. So we've given it as a burp. So now let's go here as a pinning one. Okay, So now we have exported that certificate. We have also pushed the Frida script.js there. So now what we have to do, we have to start the Frida server, which is inside that device. So how we can do that is we have to do adb, and we have to give the path where the Frida server is. So we are saying that adb shell and this. So this end is to run the command in background. So when I do this, so it is started. This is the process ID for that particular thing. So the Frida server is now started on this device. So now we'll just check whether we can run the Frida server there. So we'll just try to list the processes inside the device. So this is the command for listing the processes. So if we do Frida psu, yes, it is listing all the processes which is running inside the device. Yes. Okay, so anyone have questions yet, like till now? Anything is, you can ask. If you don't understood anything till now, you can ask. So we check that Frida server is running. So once we got the confirmation that Frida server is working fine, so it's time to do the SSL pinning for that particular application. So what we need, so we will run Frida. We want the package name, the application package name, and we want the path of that Frida script, and we have to give this command as well. So first, let's check what is the package name for Twitter. So adb, if you do adb shell cd data app, if you go here, you see this is the package name for Twitter. We'll just note it down somewhere so that it will be easy for us to form that command exit. Now we also know the path for that Frida script. So the path is data local temp and then Frida script .js. This is the path. So we'll just form this command on Notepad so that it will be easy for us to paste it directly. So this is the command. So we will give the package name here. We have given the package name, and now we have also given the path of the Frida script.js. So we'll just use this command. Okay. So now on this, I'll just paste this. Okay, what I can get. Okay. So I think this comes first and then the file name. So that is why I was getting this error. Directory. Just let me check whether it is there. We have pushed data local temp. Yeah, Frida script is there. Frida script.js, no pause. Okay. If just a second. If okay. So okay, I got it. What was the issue? Okay, so we are running this Frida script on the system itself. We are not trying to run it on the Frida script from the device. So we will run this because we are in the same folder, Frida. So I was trying to run it from the device, but that is not the case. We have to run it on the system itself. Unable to find applications. Okay, it is not finding that application. Why so? ADP Locket. Grep. Just a second. Okay, com.twitter.android. Okay, this is the process name. It is not Android one. It is com.android. Okay, now it is running. So this is actually the problem which we had. First is I was giving the file name, but you have to give the process name. So that is why. So this is the process name for this Twitter. So I just now checked with the Locket what is the process name, and I have given the process name. And since this Frida script is there in this folder Frida itself, so I've given that. So now if you see, Twitter will be launched once you run the Frida script, and let's see whether we can now intercept any traffic. Yes, you can see that once I click the login, I got this from the twitter.com. It is going to twitter.com. So which means that we are now, yes, intercepting the traffic for Twitter itself. So if I give anything login, so you can see that it is going to Twitter. So we can just intercept the traffic. So yes, now we actually bypass the SSL pinning, which is there for Twitter, with the help of Frida. So anyone having questions still here, like how you can ask. If anything is not clear, please ask, because there will be many applications which will be having SSL pinning once you do bug bounties or pen testing. So Frida is a very nice tool to do it. It is most popular one. So with Frida you can do SSL pinning very easily. Okay. So yes, there is also one note which I have written that sometimes Frida script may not work on some applications. So most of them it will work, but sometimes there will be case that it is not working. So at that time you have to find some workaround, like figure out how the application is handling this SSL pinning, and you have to then debug and check what is the issue. But most of the time it will work. As you can see on the Twitter, it worked. So as per my experience, most of the application it will work, but sometimes you might get some application which is having some functions or having some code which is means Frida cannot intercept. So at that time you have to just check what is the issue and try to figure it out. Okay, so now let's move to the objection. So what is this objection? The objection is also it's a powered by Frida itself. So it is also a runtime mobile exploration toolkit. So it can be used to bypass Frida SSL pinning itself. So objection can also be used to bypass SSL pinning. So how we install objection? So it is very easy. We do pip3 install objection. So for Linux we just install with this command. And if you want to upgrade it, you can do pip3 install upgrade objection. So if you want to upgrade it, you can just upgrade it like this. And what uses. So now with objection we will see how we can bypass SSL pinning. So I'll take one application. So this is the application called as certificate pinning. So for this application, so let me show you that application first. Okay, just a second. ये आवाज करू नका ग. आवाज करू. Okay, so let me open that application. So this is the one, certificate pinning. So what this application is basically, there are two modes. You can means working in the pinned mode and this unpinned mode. So when it is pinned, so it is pinned to a random domain. So when you try to connect it, you'll get this error that SSL handshake exception pin certificate not matching with the pin certificate. So this application is pinned with one certificate. So that is why if you try to submit like any URL, you'll get this error. So in the unpinned state, you can just submit it and you'll get operation complete. Like, so now we are in the unpinned state. So if you try google.com, yeah, operation is complete. So we can connect with the unpinned state, but in the pinned state, you will get that SSL handshake exception error. So that is what I have written here. So when pinned, the application will is pinned with a random website, and you will get SSL handshake error in the pin state, but with the correct URL, you will get a proper response. So here you can see that it is pinned first. So we got this exception. Now it is unpinned, and we got this 200 OK. So now let's use objection to bypass the SSL pinning for this particular application. So to run objection, you have to first run the Frida server on the device itself first, and then we can run the objection. But as we know that we have the Frida server is already running on our device, so let's check that. Yes, it is already running. So it is on this. Okay, I've cleared that particular. So now we will do. Okay. So now we'll just run objection directly. So Frida server is running. So if you try to run it again, so let's see what it is giving. So it is already running. So it is giving me error. Your address already new. So that means it is already running on the device. So now for this application, what we need is, so we need its process name or the package name, and then we say explore. So this is the package name for that application. So I'll just insert this command directly. So what it is doing, objection, and then I'm trying to explore this application. So I'm getting some responses. Okay. So now we are inside the objection. Okay, now let's see what is the command for SSL pinning. So with objection it's very easy. So to do the SSL pinning, we have to just give this command like Android SSL pinning disable. So here we do Android SSL pinning and we disable. So yes, it is the SSL pinning is disabled for that particular application now. So now if you try to check, let's see. So now let's take the pinned state and let's try to connect to Google. Let's see what is that. Yeah, so now we can see the operation is complete even in the pinned state. So that means with the help of objection, we'll just bypass the SSL pinning for this particular application. Okay, so anyone have questions here? Okay, nice. So this is how we can bypass SSL pinning with the help of objection. So there are different modules. You can do different stuff also with objection, like hooking some function, and then if there is some functions in the application which is checking for SSL pinning, you can also customizely hook those functions. But this is a model which is given by the objection itself. So with this model, you can just disable the SSL pinning. So this is how we disabled it. So you can see that with the Google in the pin state, we got the correct response. So this is how we bypass SSL pinning with Frida as well as with objection. So now we will look into root detection and how we can bypass it. So what is routing? So routing is basically it's a process of allowing a users to get the higher privileged means access to the device. So basically you'll get the root access. So root means you can do anything on the device. You can install your custom ROMs. You can delete the pre-installed application from the particular company. Suppose Samsung or any Nokia, those pre-installed application you can delete. Or basically you will have the root permission on the device, so you can do anything. So why root detection? So why actually the developers use means root detection on the application? So some sensitive applications such as banking or crypto, the developers don't want the users to install this application on the rooted devices, because since the device is rooted, any application can view any application files. So there is no such restriction as in, or even if there is some malware or any application which means get a privilege like a root privilege in the Android device, it can then explore anything on the device. So basically it's very risky for this application, for this banking or the other applications. So so what happens is with this application, applications basically stores data in those files. Like as we saw, there is a sandbox environment for each application, and application tend to store some files. In those files, like they can store credentials, they can store sessions or cache files. So this information is actually very sensitive, right? So developers don't want like this application to be installed on the rooted devices, because there is a very high risk in those devices. So that is why they put this mechanism, that is root detection. So there might be like different techniques which they can put inside the application to detect root, but this is how means how we can bypass it, that we will see. So these are some common root detection methods which are implemented in the application. So the first one is the emulator detection. So what this is basically what developer will check is whether the application is running on the emulated environment or not. So mostly researchers, hackers use emulators for testing devices. So that is why they will check whether they are running on emulators or not. If they are running, then they will just not run that particular application, or they will just close that particular process. So yeah, most of the time researchers, hackers use emulators for testing, and in that case developer can use some customized code to check whether they are running on the emulated devices. So they can also check these file extensions. So when you root when a person or when someone root their Android device, there are different methods of also rooting the device. So there are some different applications, like here they are checking whether it is having a super user.apk. So these are some files related to some what we can say applications or some techniques which are generated on the device when we root it. So when say suppose a person roots his device, there might be a file called as a daemon su, which will be residing under system xbin. So these are some different techniques of rooting, and developers are checking those actually. So what are whether these files are existing on the device or not. If these files are existing, so that then they are determining that this device is rooted. So also checking for su binaries or busybox binaries, they can also determine whether the device is rooted or not. So these su binaries might be residing under this different folders, like inside sbin su or system bin su, or different things like this. These are different location which they will reside into, and yes, developers are checking those to detect whether the device is rooted or not. So this is one technique to determine whether the device is rooted. Now they can also check for the running processes. The SuperSU is the most popular tool which is used for routing, and it will run a process called as daemon su. So if you check the running processes onto the device, and if you found this process, so that means this device is rooted. So yes, they can even write some piece of code to check this process. Now they can also check for the application packages. So these are the different applications which are used for routing. the device. So you can check for these packages like super user, or these are different application like this com.noshu for android.su, or these are different application packages which they can check to detect whether the device is rooted or not. So these are some common methods they use. So there might be different other techniques they can be used, but these are some common methods which they use. I'm audible, right? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now we will check how means we can bypass root detection. So now I have created one application which is named as root check app. So I've just implemented a particular function there which is checking for an this two binary inside that particular folder. So this is one just an example. So what I've did. So this is the piece of code for that. So what I'm checking is whether I'm checking whether that binary exists, this two binary, in this particular paths or not. That is in system xbin.su or system bin.su or this other different locations. So I'm checking in this location, and if it exists, then I'm saying that device is rooted. And if it does not exist, then yes, obviously I'll say that device is not rooted. So this is one of the technique which I try to means try to impersonate here, like what are the different techniques they are using. So here I'm just trying to use this so that you'll get some idea like how it is implemented. So this is the application. Let me just open that application. So this is root check app. So since we are in the Genymotion, then obviously it will give us this. It will say that yes, the device is rooted, because since it's a Genymotion, so there will be a two binaries which will be residing in those file locations. So if we can check quickly, let's see ADB shell. So let me show you whether okay. Okay, cd system xbin. So there are many things here. So let me just grab that. Grab soup. Okay. Grab soup. So you can see there is this binary present soup. So inside this xbin there is this binary. So since my application is checking for those binaries, so that is why it is giving us the message that it is yes, it is rooted. So there is a binary inside this. So if you even check inside system bin, so let's see, there will be also this binary. So ls, then I'm grabbing the particular binary. So yes, it is also present in the system and system bin. So since we are using Genymotion, obviously it's a rooted device. So these binaries are present. So now as I shown you from the code here, so these are the different location I'm checking it. So since it is there, so obviously I'm getting this message that it is rooted. So you can also check here. So when I do check root, it is saying me yes, the device is rooted. Yeah. So now we will see how we can bypass this. So yes, so basically it is checking su located at a various location as discussed before. So these are the different location where it is checking whether the su binary is located, which is actually a super user binary. So this is related to the code. So it is saying that there is one function called a check root. So this function check root. So it declares a string called string array, which then passed for a for loop. And if so you can see that there is one for loop here. So if this exists, then we get z is equal to true, and if it z is true, means for this code I'm telling you, it will give us the message rooted. If z is not if it is false, then it will give us not rooted. So now since there is a binary inside this system.xbin, then obviously this z will be true, and we'll got this message that the device is rooted. So this is one example how developer can use means any function to check it. So yes, now if the Z is true, we displays the message rooted, and as the SU exists. So now in order to bypass, first what we have to do, we have to first decompile the application and then check the function, and then we will try to edit the Smalley code itself, and then we will recompile the application and we will see whether we have bypassed it or not. So what I will do first, I will just open JDX GUI, so it will be easy for us to look into the code there. Desktop and so meanwhile, if you have any question, you can ask. Okay, so let me run JDX GUI. Okay, I think I will have that application on here. Okay, example.root check app. So this is my application. So okay, I don't have binary. Apps. Okay, I don't have it. So let me pull it. Let me pull that particular binary here in the any folder, say CD desktop Android. So let me make one directory there, say root check. Root check. What I'll do is I'll pull that particular application. So before pulling it, I have to know its package name. So I'll do adb shell cd data app. So this is the name, package name. So let me just note it down so that we can pull it. Then I'll do exit, and now adb pull. We will give the, we have to also specify the path where it is located. So that is data app. So yes, it is pulled now. So the application will be named as base.apk. So once we pull anything from the device, they will by default get this name. So okay, so this is the application base.apk. So now we will try to open it with JDX GUI. So now we know it's under Android root check. This is the application. So now JDX GUI will decompile it. Yes, yeah, it has decompiled it and we got the source code. So as we saw, it is under com example root check app, and in the main activity we have, okay, just a second. Yeah, so in this activity we have that a particular function root check, and it is we are passing this strings value, and then we are checking whether the SU exists, and if it is exists, we are setting the Z is equal to true, and if it is true, we get this message as rooted. So now what we will do, we will decompile the application with the help of APK tool first. So that application is, so here let's me go there. Okay, it is under root check, and now, so this is the application. So what we will do, we'll do APK tool decompile. We don't want to decompile the resources, we just want the sources, we just want a Smalley code. So that's why we are giving this base.apk. So now it is decompiling. So let's wait. Yes, it has decompiled. So we got this folder as base, so inside which we will get the decompiled files for that particular application. So these are the files. So if you go to Smalley, we'll get a Smalley code. So you can see there are different Smalley code. So we have to go to the package directory com.example, and then it will be root check app. So here we are interested in main activity.smalley, right? So let me open it with let's say nano. Okay, so this is the Smalley code for that particular activity. This is all the Smalley code, which is kind of a machine language. So it is, so what we will do, so now let's look here what we did. We decompiled the application with the APK tool. Now we have to edit the main activity.smalley such that that particular root detection function fails, and we get that it is not rooted, that that application is not rooted. So what we have to do, we have to change, rebuild the application, sign it, and then install it and check whether we have bypassed it or not. So now as I said, if you look at this line 26, at the line 26, this line 26, you can see that z is, it is declaring as true, right? So now true, so then we are saying that it is rooted. So if you also check the this line 26 in Smalley code, so now let's open Smalley. So this is the line 26, you can see that dot line 26. So it is declaring, it is just passing this value ox1 1 into this variable v0. So we can just tell that this one represents true. So what we have to do to bypass it, we just have to make it false. So if you look here, so if you make this false, so then you will know that else if there is this function else if. So we are saying that if it is false, then show us not rooted. So we have to just make this as false. So we are just kind of breaking this and then showing us that it is not rooted. So now we have to make this as false. So let's try to edit this. So let me close it. Let's open this in here. So in the insert mode, under line 26, this is the line 26. So I'll make this false. So that is 0. So now I'll save it. It is saved. So once it is saved, we have to rebuild the application. So I have made the changes into the Smalley code. So now what we will do, we'll come back. Okay, this is that base file. So what we will do, we will build that application again with the help of APK tool. Build, we are using this base. So once we build it, there will be another application created in the dist folder as we discussed yesterday. So let it build the application. So now the application is built. So we go to base, and there will be one folder called as dist. So in the dist, we will see that application is created. So this is the one with the change that we have made, that 1 to 0. So this is the application that is having the change. So now we have the application. So we have to now sign it, otherwise it won't get installed. So to sign it, so as we discussed yesterday, so let me just do that, how we sign the application. So yes, signing the application. So first we have to generate the key with the help of keys tool. So let me generate that key. So I'm giving any alias, say test. So with the key tool, we are generating a key which is will give it name as a key.jks. We are selecting the algorithm as well as the key size and the validity. And alias you can give any name. So now it will ask you for the password. So let's provide test123. Just a second. Test123. Okay. Now again it will ask. Yeah, it will ask for first name. You can give any data. It does not matter because we are not just we are not publishing this on the Play Store. It is just for testing. So you can give any data. And yes, it has now created this key that is called key.jks. So what we will do, So now it is created key. So now it is time to sign the application. So we can sign this application with the help of this jar signer. So what, this is the command jar signer. So in the jar signer we are selecting the key store. Now we select the application, and now the alias. What was the alias? So our alias was test. So enter the password again. So it will ask you for the password. Yes, the application is now signed. So now since it is signed, we can install it. So let's see. So this is the base.apk. So what we will do, we will just uninstall this pre-installed application so that we can install the new one. So I'm uninstalling this root check, and yes, we have uninstalled it. So let's install this with adb install base.apk failure. Okay, why we got failure? This also has been signed. We have signed it. Okay, let's do another method. Let me push this in the SD card. Let's try this, whether this is working. Request argument, ready to push base.apk. So I push that. Let me see whether we can install it from here. Yeah, there is this base.apk. Let me try to install it. Oh, there is some issue. I have not installed. Okay, so let me just try to debug what is happening. What was the okay failure? What is this message? It is saying okay, test only. T. Okay, it is saying T, that is test only. So we need to install it with this argument T. Base.apk T install install. Okay, so now we got the success. It is installed. So this is the application root check app. Let's see. So yes, you can see when I now did the check root, it is giving us the message as not rooted. So that means we have bypassed the particular check. So this check we have bypassed. So we have set the z is equal to false by changing the Smalley code. So now since this files, even though Sue exists, it is setting the z is equal to false, and then if the z is equal to false, then it is showing the non-rooted. So in other application or in a application which you are hunting or doing pen testing, there may be some different functions the developer might declare depending on this value. So if they're saying that z is equal to true, then run this particular piece of code. But since we are declaring it is equal to false itself, so even though it exists, that function will run and it will say that yes, device is not rooted. So then your application will work. Like it won't give you and pop up or an error that yes, device is rooted, you cannot run the application. So yes, this is how depending on the application you can read the code or figure out what is happening, and you can bypass the root check. So as you said, yeah.
You decompile the new APK and show us.
Okay, you want to see the change?
Yes.
Okay, let me show, because yes, we can do that. Okay, so the new application is here, that is this base.apk. So if I decompile it here itself. Base.apk. Okay, let's not decompile the resources.
No, you can show it in ZX.
I can okay. Yeah, I'll just show it here itself. Okay, let me just remind where was it to check under this base.apk is not that. Okay, under this base.apk. Okay, so now if you go to source code com root check activity main, so you can see that Z is now false. So that is why this check failed, and since Z is false, we are getting this non-rooted. Since we have changed the Smalley code, so we have changed the value of this Z.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is how we can bypass the root check. If you know to read the code, or if you know to figure out what is happening inside the code, then you just decompile the application, check inside a Smalley code, try to map it to the Java code, what is happening inside a Smalley code, and then just edit it and then build it. So yes, root detection bypass we saw. So yes, previously it was giving when I do check it is rooted, but once we added this particular line of code, that is on line 26, we have declared it as change it to 01, which was true, to 01, which was false, and then yes, we have set the Z to false. So then once we check the root, now it was saying non-rooted, the device is not rooted. Okay, so this was it with the SSL pinning and root detection. So we will now move to the next chapter, which is OAuth top 10. So if you have any doubts till yet, you can ask, or we can move. Okay, so let's move. So OAuth top 10 for mobile. So OAuth is an online community for the security people, so that have created in free learning materials, documentation, and tools which will help you to secure the application, the mobile application, as well as if you're looking for OAuth top 10 web, then yes, you will get the guidance for the web application also. So now we will be discussing about OAuth top 10 mobile. So just let's look into it. So the first one, that is improper platform uses. So what this is basically, so as we saw in the previous classes, so there might be a different components in Android which might be exported. So if you are declaring those components exported, then there is a risk that other application can call this. So this comes under the platform uses. So how you are using the platform functionalities. So this is how the thing is. So this category covers the misuse of platform features and other security controls. So it might include the misconfigured components or platform permissions, whether your application is having some permissions which it should not have, like storing into the external storage, and then the application is storing some data in the external storage. So since it is world readable, the external storage, any application can read the particular data. So now we will look into some reports on HackerOne which are focused on this kind of issues, that is improper platform usage. So the first one is yes, so this one is from B3Neck. So he's a well-known researcher in mobile. So he also have his own YouTube channel focused on only on Android security. You can check it, I'll also provide the link. So this particular bug is he's saying that he has found one exported broadcast receiver in one of the application. So now let's look into the report. So you can see this is the application, the particular activity, and that activity is having an intent filter and having an exported through. That means this receiver is having an exported through. So any application can call this. Any application can broadcast a message to this receiver. So that is what it is. So you should. So what he was saying is this. So now, if you look here, so he's trying to broadcast a message to this application. So he's saying run app.broadcast.send an action he has given to the receiver, and he's sending some extra text to it. So since it's a receiver, it will receive any messages from any broadcast. So now if I make an application declaring one broadcast, and then in that broadcast code, if I provide this receiver, and since it's exported, I can just send a message to this receiver. So yes, that is the that he's reported, and now he's also saying that what the fix you can implement here. So you can either put that exported to false here, or you can say that it needs a signature as a protection level. So this is an extra argument. He's saying that you can also include this. So what this means is if the application which is trying to exploit this is signed with the same certificate, with means the same certificate for which this application is also signed, then only he can broadcast a message to this receiver. Means both the applications should be signed with the same certificate, otherwise that application cannot just broadcast this to it. So that is what he's saying. So adding a signature custom permission make it so broadcast can only be used with application that was signed with the same key. So yes, this was the one of the finding he found, that this particular component is having exported through. So now let's look into another one. So now he has also found one possible to intercept broadcast about uploaded files. So there is also one receiver. This is also about the receiver. So this receiver was having exported as through. So now it was having this intent filter with this actions, file upload, start file upload, finish, and this. So now if you send the so what will happen is a malware can simply create a receiver. So you create a receiver and receive the broadcast first, then your own receiver. So this is how we found that particular thing is exported, and you can exploit it. So let's move ahead. So the second one is insecure data storage. So this category covers like the storage that application uses, like how perfectly they are using it, or whether they are storing it in the external storage, whether they are storing it carelessly. So yes, this is the category which is focused on that. So it is saying that device might get lost, or it may come in the hands of attacker. So if a piece of malware acting on that particular device. So if you're storing something in the external storage, and if your device is suppose get lost, and then if the attacker is having physical access to it, and then yes, obviously he can check into the device, or he can check into the storage. So you should not store much sensitive details in the device storage itself. So that is what this category is focused into. So yes, it is also saying that since application can't store everything on the servers, they have to store something on the device itself. So you can store it in an encrypted format. So it will be difficult for an attacker or for a malicious user to decrypt those details. So now the insecure communication. So most of the application will work in the client and server architecture, and hence they will work on the internet. So the thing is, if you are allowing the application to speak in the clear text, then anyone monitoring your network with the help of any proxy tool, or if you suppose your Wi-Fi is compromised, then he can just read that data in the clear text. So if the clear text traffic is going, anyone can read it if he is in your network and he is monitoring your traffic. So this insecure communication can be due to poor handshake or weak negotiation, uh, incorrect SSL version. You're using some old version of SSL, and you're using HTTP instead of HTTPS. So it is recommended to use HTTPS always for all the network communication, so that the traffic is secure. Now the insecure authentication, the fourth one. So insecure authentication is basically means that the authentication mechanism in the application is not proper. Means a user can bypass it somehow. Say suppose there is an OTP mechanism, then user if user can bypass it, then yes, this comes under this category. So failing to identify the users at all when that should be required, or failing to maintain the user's identity, even the weakness in the session management. So these are comes into this insecure authentication. So there is one report, so let's just check that one. So yes, so what this researcher did is he just bypassed the two-factor authentication on the Grab Android app. So this is the description. So he found one endpoint, this is the endpoint, so which allows me to bypass 2FA due to lack of rate limiting. So there was no proper rate limiting on that endpoint, so he can just brute force this 4-digit code from 1000 to 9999, and if the code is not working, he will get this error, and if the code works, he'll get this 204 no content. So since there was no rate limiting, he can just brute force the code and then yes, bypass the authentication. So this is how he bypassed it. Yes. So now the insufficient cryptography. Mobile application can use cryptography to store some data inside the device. As we discussed, if you want to store it securely, you have to somehow encrypt it or somehow save it into a secure manner. Or you can also encrypt the network traffic which is going from the device, so that anyone intercepting it, it will be difficult for him to decrypt what is happening or what the traffic is going. So developers can use the some methods which are already there, or they can use an customized one. But while implementing it, the care should be taken so that you are not disclosing any secret keys, or the method using is not easy to reverse engineer. So there is one this blog. So there's one company called AppNox. So they have found the issue in the Ola app. This was around 2015. So what they have found is the Ola app is using AES to encrypt user passwords. So with the key, so this was the hard-coded key inside the application itself. So an attacker getting the access to hashes of the user's password can just decrypt those hashes with the help of this key. So this is the blog. So in this blog, so yes, it was around 2015, I guess. So they have found this, that this is the blog. So they have found that they're using AES to encrypt the user passwords, and this is the key, which is hard coded itself in the application. So they can just decrypt the user password hashes. So yeah, so while using the cryptography also, the developer has to be take care like how they are using it. So now comes the insecure authorization part. So authorization basically means that your access right into that particular application, so what access rights you're having. So while using this authorization model, there should be proper care taken, so that users which are not having the proper privileges are not doing the actions or unauthorized action. They are not elevating their privileges to do certain action inside the device. So this is one blog which is showing us more on it, like how it was happening in one of the applications. So there is one this KLAMP application. So it is a smart key, I guess, for the car. So what the researchers found is that the application was communicating with a third party server. So on that server they can just log in with their normal privileges, and they'll get access to all the data, all the users data inside, whoever the users which are logged into this, means whoever the user which are using this application. So this is what they have found. So they what are the things they can do. So they have also said that they can just change the user password to know, one, go to the car, unlock, start or leave, get all the reports of where everyone was, stop the engine while someone was driving, get all the users and leak, and so on. So this is some kind of weird stuff which was happening with them. So yes. So now the client code quality. So this includes like vulnerabilities like buffer overflows. So what are buffer overflows is basically like you write in malicious code uh, into the area where the executable code exists. So what you do, you just send some string values so that you can overflow the buffer, and once it is overflow, that particular overflowed code will be written into some legit part of the application where the code execution is happening. So now since your code is getting placed at that part, it will execute. So this blog is about the WhatsApp hack. So it was around 2019. So they found the hackers found an 0-day kind of bug. So wherein placing a call can just they can access your device data. So just by placing a call, WhatsApp call. So they have identified this as a CVE. They have given a CVE ID to it. So yes, this is you can read about more on this. So code tampering. So code tampering is basically duplicating an application. So you can just duplicate the application, temper the code with your malicious code, and put some backdoors in it, and you can just publish it in the third-party sites like APK Mirror or any other third-party sites where you are downloading the APKs. So since you're not, some users don't download APKs from the Play Store. If you want like older version APK, you can download from these sites. So hackers can just take the application, do some code changes, and then publish the application with the same name, tricking the users to download them. So you can attacker can also temper some application feature so that you can enable some extra feature inside the application. So this to prevent this risk, developers should use anti-tampering solution, and you have to just detect this whether there is tampering or not, and if there is a tampering, then you have to just not allow them to install. So the famous hack was on this Pokemon Go application. So what hackers did is they reverse engineered the application. They saw like what are the different what is the code used for this geolocation or the geo index. So there is in Pokemon Go you can find these Pokemons as you move from your place, like in the geo area. So they just hacked it, and they then changed their location to any place so that they can catch more Pokemons there. So there is also thing called as Pokédex, I guess, that you can see the Pokemon around you. So they have also changed some code related to that Pokédex, and you can see all the Pokemons around you. Like in this image, you can see, right, all the Pokemons. So this is how they just hack that one particular application and then start playing the game. So this, yeah, I was talking about reverse engineering. So this, by reverse engineering, you can analyze the code, libraries, function, and other asset inside the application. So how we decompile the application, that is what is reverse engineering. We just decompiled and we got the source code, and now we can check for the vulnerabilities in the source code. So one thing developers can do is they can obfuscate the code properly so that it is hard to read. And now the last one is the extraneous functionality. So what is this is sometimes developers keep hidden backdoors or security controls inside the application at the time of production, so that there might be some test cases which they are running on the application, or they need some functionality so that they can remotely log into the application then check. So on since it is on the production, these are the different things developer try on the application. But while the production after the production, when you publish the application, then yes, they have to check whether these things are still there in application. So if it is not removed, then any hacker or any bad guy can just exploit these things. So yes, these are the OOPS top 10. So yes, basically with this we are done with all the modules which are there in the course, and the last part is just the write-ups and resources. So these are different write-ups and resources which you can view or read. So there are some YouTube videos link which you can watch to getting started. There are some resources, even there are some write-ups related to this static analysis, hard-coded threads,